Ibu Muhammad atau kami Presiden of Majlis Perundingan Pertumbuhan Islam Malaysia (MAPIM), Datuk Sri Ahmad Awang, Chairman Alliance Masjid Sedunia Pertahankan Al-Aqsa, Dr Mahathir Deputy President of Malaysia Kashmir Youth Movement. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan salam sejahtera. Distinguished guests, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I'm indeed honored to be invited to this event, which is being held to commemorate the year-long lockdown of Jammu and Kashmir since the 5th of August 2019. It is not an occasion to celebrate. It is an occasion for us to reflect on the pain and plight of those living in Jammu and Kashmir. We have experienced the pain of the lockdown due to COVID-19 pandemic, but we know it is not even a minute comparison to the lockdown of Jammu and Kashmir. If we felt that the few months of lockdown was unbearable due to the restrictions of movement, imagine a lockdown that is not only restrictive of movements but applied with ferocious military intervention and almost the total communication blackout. On top of this, dissents are met with arrests, and international bodies have expressed concern over the human rights situation at exacerbated. Ladies and gentlemen, speaking out and suffer the consequences. When I first raised the issue of India's unilateral revocation of Jammu Kashmir autonomy at the UN General Assembly and described it as the country being invaded and occupied, India threatened Malaysia with boycott of our palm oil. Those making this threat felt that as the then Prime Minister of Malaysia, I should be more diplomatic in my utterances, and that my contention of Jammu Kashmir being invaded and occupied is a misrepresentation. Indeed, I am aware of the revocation of Article 370 and 35(a) of the Indian Constitution and what they entail. The territories are placed under emergency law and its autonomy status revoked. But what accompanied the decision by the BJP government? You also witnessed the deployment of tens of thousands of troops into the territories, the arrest of political leaders and dissenting civilians, including children, and the internet and telephone networks, both mobile and landlines, being cut off. If that is not an invasion and an occupation, then I wouldn't know what it is. In fact, the term lockdown is a misnomer. It should be described as a siege. Ladies and gentlemen, I have chosen to speak out despite being aware of the potential backlash. To my mind, keeping quiet is an option when all the telltale signs were pointing towards another situation whereby a big and powerful country imposes its will with impunity on a small and defenseless nation. What transpired since my contentious speech at the UN General Assembly in September last year only served to prove that what I had said were mild and to a certain degree very restrained. I offer no apology for what I had said, though I am sorry that it had affected our palm oil export to India. I don't know if that is a high price to pay for speaking out against such injustices. Now that I am no more the Prime Minister, thank God, I take it that I can now speak without restraint and address the Kashmir issue without threats of boycotts and such. Ladies and gentlemen, when Jammu and Kashmir's autonomy was revoked, the fear of the people being oppressed and persecuted became a real concern. The deployment of military forces by the Indian government by the tens of thousands and into the disputed territories added to the concerns. And these concerns are definitely not baseless when a senior Indian diplomat unabashedly and publicly declared the need for Delhi to adopt an Israeli model in the Indian administered Kashmir. It is indeed beyond comprehension that a diplomat exposed to the ways of the world could even think, let alone suggest, for his government to use Israel's model of occupation of Palestine as the manner or strategy to administer Kashmir. Surely, he would be well informed of the atrocities and the genocidal actions the Tel Aviv regime has dished out on Palestine and the Palestinians. The inhuman treatment of Palestinians had to suffer and endure for decades under Israel's occupation had been a subject of international distress and shame, an albatross around the neck of the international community. Ladies and gentlemen, while we condemn the promotion of utilizing the Israeli model, it was also very telling of what the Indian administrative class think about Kashmir and the Kashmiris. And while we ponder on the bleak, faded future of those living in the territory, we are served with reports of violations of human rights. These reports have been publicly voiced and have appeared in numerous international media and agencies, and to dismiss the occurrences would mean that we are again turning our back on crimes against humanity so as to be diplomatically proper and to avoid backlash and controversy. Ladies and gentlemen, we have witnessed how occupation and invasion of territories in numerous parts of the world remain unsolved for decades, and their peoples, young and old, men and women and children, suffering for decades. Jammu and Kashmir are no different. It had somewhat been spared from worse sufferings while it enjoyed its semi-autonomous status. With the revocation of the provision, the Citizenship Amendment Act, CAA, and the National Register of Citizens, Jammu and Kashmir are subjected to the heavy-handedness of the occupying forces. I wish to reiterate that the problem needs to be resolved through peaceful means. I have said it before, and I will say it again. India should work with Pakistan to resolve this problem, and they must not ignore the United Nations. Ladies and gentlemen, we can list out the atrocities and violations of human rights that have been committed on the Kashmiris. While it will serve to remind Delhi that we know what you are up to, and we will continue to speak out against you for this act, we are also appealing to your sense of fair play and regard for humanity. Surely it is time that India rises above the status of a common bully into a leading nation, capable of rising above the ordinary and take serious and specific steps to put an end to those acts that are unbecoming of a nation that proudly claims to be a bastion for democracy. And surely, to be another Israel is not a route India wants to pursue.